Hey guys, so this is part 2 of the wishlist plant videos. Today we're going to talk about my wishlist plants of 2023. So if you haven't seen part 1, I'll throw up the thumbnail here. I talked about all of the plants on my 2022 wishlist that I checked off. There was way more than I expected actually when I tallied it all up. So today we're going to talk about my wishlist plants of this year. So my original video that I did beginning of last year, I did my 2022 wish list in that video. I'm looking at my phone because I have my list here. So some plants from this video will have carried over from last year's list, but I don't have a very big list actually. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 plants. And actually if I'm gonna be really honest, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are like legit wishlist plants. And when I say legit wishlist plants, I mean like these are plants that I would actually like chase. There are a lot of plants that given the opportunity I would probably purchase, like if it was presented to me. Like I just happened upon this plant in a Facebook sale or like at a pop-up or something. Like if this plant was in front of me, I'd get it. But it didn't make the list because these are plants that like I covet. I've thought about them for long enough and I really think that they deserve a place in my collection. And I've definitely rounded a corner in my like plant collector kind of mindset in that I decided I don't need every plant that I find beautiful. There are going to be a lot of plants that objectively I find beautiful. I will appreciate photos of them, but I do not need them in my collection. It might be that like I don't have a lot of experience growing them, or that I have experience growing plants from that genus and they just don't really do well for me, or they don't like, I just don't like their growth pattern or something, but I can objectively appreciate how beautiful they are. So like one example would be the what's it called? Corybus pictus. I'll put a photo right here. So it's an orchid that looks like a crystallinum. Every time I see this plant, it makes me feel things. Like it makes me feel all sorts of cute aggression. I think it's so freaking adorable, but it's not on this list because I don't think I need to own it. It's just more the fact that I don't think that I'll really get that deep into orchids. I've dabbled in orchids. I haven't really gotten there. Maybe one day in my life I will, but right now they're not a genus that really motivates me as a plant parent. I hope that makes sense. I knew this in my mind, right? But I needed to get there in my heart. I had to really deep down understand that because I find a plant beautiful does not mean I have to own it. So at least 5 out of the 7 plants on this wish list are plants that I can see myself having a long-term relationship with. So I'm gonna be looking on my phone for the list and then I'll be popping photos right here. Let me get comfortable. Okay, so the first plant, I kind of wish it wasn't on my wish list, but here it is. I fell deeply in love with this plant the first time I saw it. I don't even know how I saw it. I think I stumbled upon it on my Explore page or something. So this is Anthurium, how do you say this? Curandero? This is a hybrid. It is a Javanini hybrid of species Nova. So it's an unidentified species, and Papillolamnum Fort Sherman. In photos, so I've never seen it in person, but in photos it embodies so many features that I love in anthuriums. So to me this looks like a cross between an Anthurium nigrolamnum GG and an Anthurium dark phoenix. Kind of leaning more towards the GG side, like a little bit more leathery, a little bit like more smooth and not as velvety as the dark phoenix, but it has a lot of the venation of a dark phoenix. It has the ears of both parent plant. I'm saying it like it is a hybrid of those two plants. It's not, but if imagining that it was that hybrid, it would kind of embody a lot of features of both plants. But it's so stunningly beautiful. It's so dark and I can see myself loving this plant. I can see myself just helicoptering this plant and I can see it bringing me a lot of joy. And I feel like this needs to be said, but no part of me wanting this plant has anything to do with it being from Javanini. Like, let me just get that clear. Like it's nothing against him or anything, but it coming from him doesn't really do anything for me. It's just how beautiful this plant is. And obviously he's a very talented hybridizer. And this is, to me, a very, very successful, beautiful hybrid. And I don't even know where I would get this plant from. It definitely have to come from the States somehow. And I don't know how much it would cost me, but it is definitely on my list. And it was actually the first plant that I thought of when I was putting together my wish list. I have a running list on my phone, mostly for plants that like I know I'll forget the name of. So they're more obscure plants. A lot of them are succulents. The rest of them I just keep like like either here or like in here. I just trust myself to remember them. This is one of those plants, it immediately popped into my mind. I hope that it would be I hope that it would be a reasonably easygoing anthurium as far as anthuriums go. Like given the right conditions, I hope that it's not too finicky, it being a hybrid and everything. So when I'm looking at this plant, like when I only see like very juvenile ones on Instagram under this tag, and the juvenile leaves look very leathery, like borderline glossy, not glossy, but just not velvety at all. They're not always this dark. I've seen photos of them that are a little bit more green, but there's plenty of plants I've seen that are super, super dark like this. There's this one photo, okay, I'm gonna throw it up right now. It's of a more mature leaf. It almost looks like it's starting to be a little bit more velvety, and I think this can happen with some anthuriums that are just a little bit more glossy when they're very juvenile, and maybe they get more velvety as they mature. I don't freaking know. I could be wrong. This is just my initial observations. It might just be like the way that this photo is and the lighting and everything, but either way, if it stays on the leathery kind of smooth side, would still love it. If it gets more velvety or sub-velvety over time, that would be freaking awesome as well. I just can't see anything wrong with this plant. All right, so this next one, I think it's just a plant that I need because I love my dark phoenix so much. You all know how much this plant means to me. So obviously I want the red vein dark phoenix as well. I don't even know when this popped up. I think I started seeing it around the middle of last year. I think I know where I would be able to get it from. I just don't know if I can afford it at the moment. It looks so much like the dark phoenix, or like of certain clones of the dark phoenix. I will say that there is variability within the species, hybrid, whatever it is. Some of them look a little bit more round, and then some like mine are a little bit more elongated, a little bit more pointed. I'm assuming there's going to be the same kind of variability with a red vein one, and I don't even know if it's the same plant in just like one sort of mutation that has more of a red sinus and red veins. But I have decided that I need this plant. I love this plant because I know I've already tested out the regular dark phoenix, so I can safely assume that I'm going to love this one just as much. I don't know where they originated from, that's the thing. If anybody knows, feel free to leave it in the comments. I've seen it. I don't think it originated from Cartel Dawn, but Cartel Dawn does carry a lot of like the really awesome plants from Indonesia, but I think it did originate in Indonesia, as did the dark phoenix. That dark phoenix look with the red sinus, it's so stunning. I don't think that this one is super, super, super elusive and really hard to find. I just don't know how much they cost because I don't see them for sale very often, so I just don't really know what the market rate is of this plant is, and I just don't know if I can afford it. But to be honest, I can't afford too much these days. I'm still recovering from last year when I had like the most expensive year of my life. Fun fact, I had to replace my roof last year, which was a big chunk of change. If anyone's ever had to replace the roof on their house before, that was a huge motivating factor in me starting a YouTube channel, just to get some side income, which I'm obviously don't plan on stopping now that the roof is paid off, but like it was one huge reason I started YouTube in the first place. But yeah, still kind of recovering from last year, and having spent so much money on plants in 2020, I'm being a lot more careful of what I spend my money on. So it'd have to be a pretty good price, and in saying that, if I were ever to even entertain the possibility of getting any of these plants, it would have to be like a seedling, like a very small plant. Okay, so the next one is a carryover from last year. It's a want, it's definitely a want. It's a anthurium that is high on my wish list and always will be until I obtain it, although I don't need it like I need air, because I already have a hybrid with this plant as a pollen parent, and that is Anthurium Black Velvet Eastern Panama. So the one I'm showing you right now is a clone, a specific clone by, his handle's right there at the top, Justin, created in a garden. So this clone is called Felix. It's incredibly beautiful. It's like, it's so just balanced in that venation, and it's very, very black, and it's more like every photo I've seen of it, it's more like on the round side. So it's got this really nice wide leaf blade that you can really appreciate the color and the veining. And I'm gonna show you right now a emergent leaf. So it's like very just inky purple, super, super dark, very sultry, just like a beautiful, beautiful dark purple color. And then as it hardens, it gets a little bit more red tones in it. And then finally it hardens to this like delicious dark black, just disgustingly beautiful. This leaf is so, so stunning. So I don't ever plan on getting a Felix, because in order to get Felix, you have to get a clone, aka a cutting of the plant. You know, like if Felix was ever selfed and like you put Felix pollen on Felix and then Felix birthed seeds, you couldn't really expect the seedlings to look just like Felix. It very well could, but there's a very good chance that it'll look quite different as well, especially in terms of the leaf shape and just like how the venation is and stuff. It might even present different emerging colors. I feel like it would look very similar, like how the hardened leaves will still have that really nice black velvety color, but it won't look quite the same. So on my wish list is a black velvet Eastern Panama. But of this plant, the Felix is just, to me, like the pinnacle of that plant for me. It's just so, so beautiful. But I don't expect to ever get it. To be clear, I don't expect to get it, but maybe I could reasonably attain a black velvet Eastern Panama, just a general one, not necessarily the Felix. To be quite frank, I don't think I could. Rational thought would prevent me from getting a lot of these plants. I could maybe get one or two, but nope, not all of them. I'd have to be selective. Okay, so those are the 3 anthuriums on my wish list. There are definitely more, and there are definitely other anthuriums that, like, given the opportunity, I would definitely want to get. For example, like, it's kind of like on my, it's not so much a wish list because I already own this plant, but kind of on my radar. I'd like to get another Bessier aft, but I'd have to see the plant in person. So I'm interested in going to like an Ecogenera or a Tropicals Plants pop-up and just looking at what they have and just selecting one that has like a really cool sinus or good veining. And because this plant is so super variable and I really like how this plant looks, I would be interested in getting another one. But it's like that's more of like a shopping list rather than a wish list. Why did I get on that topic? Oh yeah, so yeah, there are other anthuriums that I'm interested in, but those are the 3 that I'm currently coveting. Next one is also a carryover from last year, but it's getting close. I can almost taste it. This is the Monstera Burly Marks Flame. For a really long time, this was like an unattainable plant. Especially for me, it was insanely expensive. The price has come down quite a bit. I wanted this plant because I love how it looks. It's just like a disgusting, evil looking Monstera. And I love the Deliciosa. The Deliciosa is my favorite Monstera of all time. And it'll probably be one of my favorite plants of all time for the rest of my life. But I wasn't very confident in my ability to grow them. But this year, with the help of Great White, I won't say that I conquered Monsteras, but they have it's definitely boosted my confidence with the plant. What I believe is a Brazilian common form, it didn't grow a single leaf for me in like 2 years, and in this year alone with Great White I've grown 3 leaves. So that and the Thai, and I have a yellow variegated monsteras, they've all been growing way better for me this year, so I'm feeling a lot more confident owning this plant. And as you'll see from this photo, Ecogenera is now carrying Burly Marks Flame. I keep wanting to say Burly Marks Fantasy. They're now carrying Burly Marks Flame. I think they've been selling it in the Florida shop, if I'm not mistaken, but now that they're carrying it, now that they're propagating and multiplying, I'm hoping that by the end of this year, I'll be able to own one. It's certainly been circulating, even like locally to me in Vancouver. I've seen cuttings of it. It's still a little bit more expensive than I'd like, but it's way more attainable now. So this is one that I feel like I might have a good shot at obtaining it this year. And looking at photos, it looks like it doesn't really need to fully root into a moss bowl. Like it just kind of needs a support in order to size up. So that's looking pretty good for me. I would definitely grow this in my tent to begin with, but once it gets bigger and, you know, outgrows the space, I think I would be pretty okay with growing it out in room conditions. I hope that I'd be able to get it to fenestrate, but in saying that, those really like pointy long juvenile leaves, I think they're really freaking cool as well. Like even when it's like in that mid stage where it's still kind of skinny and long, but it has fenestrations, because when a regular deliciosa starts to fenestrate as like a medium juvenile-ish plant, the leaf is still really fat and the fenestration doesn't take up too much of the leaf, or I guess I should say pennations. So the pennations on this one, even on a juvenile one, goes really, really deep, and then you'll still have like a very, very skinny sections of the leaf blade in between. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but I think we got a good chance at this one. Okay, this next one is also a carryover from last year's wish list. Not quite as obtainable, I think, as the Burly Marks Flame, but I think it's doable, especially since Jing has one, because she got one locally from a guy in our local plant group. But this is the Philodendron polypodioides, which is an aberrant form of Philodendron pedatum. First of all, I love pretty much every variety of pedatum: Florida Green, Florida Ghost, Florida Beauty, pedatum, glad hands, quercifolium, polypodioides. Quercifolium is also on my wish list, but I can't have both of them on there. And if I were to pick between the two, I definitely choose the polypodioides because it's just like so skinny and so spindly and so awesome looking. And it looks very similar to tortum. I see a lot of people like kind of confusing the two, but it has the shape of a pedatum. It's just the skinniness of a tortum. Tyler, your local plant boy, he's the owner of Arium Botanicals. He has a beautiful one, and he's the account that I always go to when I want to look at this plant because he grows his really, really well out in his living room, I believe. I've also heard, I had a comment one time of someone growing theirs out in their living room and they don't have issues unfurling. I would assume by looking at this plant that it would need a lot of humidity to unfurl properly and not get like all stuck. But I'm hearing it's a good plant for growing out in regular room conditions, which is awesome. And I feel like this year, no, not this year, last year now, 2022, has definitely boosted my confidence in being able to size up this kind of family of plants. Like my Florida Ghost and my Florida Beauty all did really, really great last year, and they grew really big in that year. They sized up so much and they were very low effort plants for me. I'm pretty confident I can grow this plant even though it is a climber and it's a philodendron. I think this is one of the ones that I can cope with. It's the heartleaf climbing type of philodendron that I struggle with the most. So this one seems to do okay for me, and I don't think that they need so much rooting into the pole in order to size up and get bigger and mature. Of course, they would appreciate the pole and like a substrate to root into, but even with just a bamboo stick, my Florida Ghost is sizing up really, really well. I'll show it to you in another video. In 2021, I would say it was probably like at least $1,000 to get a small one, and I've seen it for like $1,500 in the US, but now I think it's possible to get one for a few $100, which is more than what I can spend on a plant at the moment. But if it can get lower, then I feel like it's on my radar. I think between this and the Burly Marks Flame, if I had the choice to just choose one of those two, I would choose the Burly Marks Flame. So those are my 5 aroids that I am coveting for this year. Some more obtainable than others. These are plants I feel like there's always going to be a small void in my collection until I get them. The next two, they're definitely wish list plants. I would be motivated to kind of go out and hunt for them, but I can live without them. But I thought I'd throw them in here because they're in my my phone note where I put plants where I will forget the name because they're a little bit more obscure. So I thought I'd include this on the list because they're a little bit more interesting plants, shall we say. So this one is Begonia lambriana. So this one is ridiculously obscure. This one is endemic to Borneo, and if you search the tag on Instagram, there's like one photo of it, and I think it's not really in cultivation, but I don't even know how I came across this. It might have been like my explore page or like someone sent it in our group chat, but this one it's so freaking black, and I can't tell if it's velvety or not because I've seen 2 photos of it. So this one here, this seems to be a guy. He posted this on Facebook, Michael Lowe, And it seems like he went on like an expedition or like a nature walk in Borneo and found this begonia, and there was like a whole bunch of begonias in his like little Facebook album from what I can see. This one looks kind of glossy. This was the first photo that I saw, and it was like, I think it's just absolutely stunning. It's so black, it's so belay, it looks just like a luxurians cosplaying as a begonia. It's so cool. This is the begonia for me, for sure. But also I saw this photo and it could be a totally different plant. And honestly, all begonia flowers, or most begonia flowers, look to me identical. Like these two photos look like they have the same flowers. So I don't know if it was like a wet leaf versus a dry leaf, but this one looks quite velvety. If I'll be honest, I kind of prefer the non-velvety just by the look of it. I think I enjoy the look of the shiny one because it looks like a luxurians. The velvety one, this one is definitely velvety, and I don't know if it's the same plant again, but it's also really beautiful. And if I had the opportunity to get this, I would get it. So in saying that, I think there are multiple begonias that look kind of similar to this. So if I saw something very similar to this, just like very bolate, blackish begonia, just like one color without any like dots or like is it called variegation or like patterning on the leaves, like just like solid green, dark black begonia with a really fat roundish leaf. Like if I could find something like that that's already in cultivation and that I can find it from like a collector or like a plant shop, I would go for that first. I think I'm not good at begonias, first of all, but I think I'm getting a bit better, so I will be careful of getting too many begonias. While I'll never be like a begonia person, like have a lot of begonias, there are a few that really like tickle my fancy. I think I have room in my collection for one more begonia in 2023. So this last plant might be a little bit surprising for some people. I get so much cute aggression from this plant, and I think it would just look awesome on a window, or like this is the kind of plant that would motivate me to find the perfect pot for it and just complement this plant. I think I came across this either in like a succulents group or my explore page once again. So this one is called Apomia belluciana. So it's a caudex plant. It's so stinking cute. So it looks like a caudex with rosemary growing out of it to me, and it makes me so happy to look at it. I am a bit intimidated by caudiciforms because anything that goes dormant and dies back during certain seasons, and like you have to just trust that it's alive, and like, you know, knowing what to do to take care of it and like the kind of substrates that it needs, and you know, caring for something while it's dormant is not my forte. It would be really nerve-wracking for me to have a caudiciform go dormant and then like trusting that it's okay and knowing what to do to kind of bring it back to growing foliage. I think I need a bit more experience or someone I can go to with questions before I own this plant, because I wouldn't want to kill it. This is just a fact. I was gonna say fun fact. It's not a fun fact. It's just a fact. For anyone who doesn't know this, caudex plants are very commonly poached, especially very popular ones in the hobby. So like Stephania erecta, Dioscorea elephantips, those ones are very commonly poached, and they're often like kind of growing on the desert, on cliffs and stuff, and like poachers will go through and just like clear everything off. So that's another reason for me to kind of hold back on this plant. I don't know enough about that side of the hobby to know like how to tell the difference between a poached plant and a not poached plant, and like how to find a reliable source that wouldn't sell poached plants, you know? So I think it would come down to finding a grower that can prove that they've been growing it for a really long time and breeding it for a really long time. And for that reason, I think I would steer away from importing caudex plants. But objectively, I find this plant just freaking, I just want to squish it. I just want to love it. I just want to hold that little bulb in my hand and just tell it that everything's going to be okay. I would actually go out and find a beautiful pot just to house this plant in, and I would just adore it. So that's just like one unusual pick I thought I'd throw on this list in case no one's ever seen this plant before, but also throw out a little PSA about the poaching aspect of caudiciforms, because it can cost a lot of money because it takes so long for them to grow large, and like big money is what motivates poachers, so wah, wah, wah. Once again, if you haven't seen part 1 of this video, I'll leave the link in the description. Let me know what is on your wish list. Like, you don't ever expect to obtain it kind of tier of wish list plant. Let me know what is in your wish list, but also let me know why it's on your wish list, because I'm very curious to know what people love in plants. It's such a fascinating thing to talk about. I should hopefully have a very fun video for you next week because, spoiler alert, we got another box of plants from Amanda. So once Charmaine's kind of settled back in from her California trip, we're gonna get together and duke it out over those plants. But yeah, that'll be coming soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.